them exactly how not to do this.
Okay. Well, I'm here and I have a bad hair day, so I won't film a lot of me.
Well, I thought, yeah, don't do that. I look really rough.
But this is...
Let's all do it from the waist down.
This is Darren Handy, and he runs All God's Creatures Sanctuary. So instead of killing the rattlesnake, I have coordinated with him. He's a licensed rehabber. He does educational programs, and he has come to get the rattlesnake that I put a bucket over. And Darren, it's All God's Creatures Sanctuary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're on Facebook?
Uh-huh.
And you have a website?
It's not up at the moment, but
okay.
there is a allgodscreatures.com, but it's not up at the moment.
Oh, okay. But you handle and do educational programs with snakes, possums, raptors, a little bit of everything, right?
Sure. Yep. Try my best to.
And when you do a snake, your main thing is to educate kids about identifying them, and I've talked in some of my other videos about how endangered rattlesnakes are.
Yep.
I read their population is like 30% of what it should be. And instead of just killing everything you see, what they provide to the environment is so beneficial. And if people just take the time to pay attention, you're not going to get bit. These things aren't attacking you. And, you know, they're just a really good thing to have in the environment, right?
They are. In fact, the University of Kentucky, I believe, you'd have to look this up, but there's now research going on that there's a protein in rattlesnake's venom, and they found it in copperhead's venom, that they believe will stop cancer. That it'll surround a tumor and kill it, stop it from feeding. You'd have to look that up for the technical part, but I believe the University of Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the leading ones that's doing research to have a cancer.
And how long have you been doing this?
Well, I've had snakes. I mean, I've had my own animals and snakes probably 20 years. I mean, I've fooled with everything: hedgehogs, chinchillas, sugar gliders, lots of stuff from the exotic pet trade. I've been dealing with wildlife and wildlife education probably for at least over 10 years now.
And how many programs do you think you do a year?
As many as I can, just being not making, you know, not being a living at it, but I probably average about 45 to 50 programs a year.
And it's mostly kids?
It is, yeah, kids, adults, anything, mostly for libraries or schools or parks, anybody that just has an open ear to hear the responsibility and the benefit, and then also with, you know, with pets, the husbandry, the responsibility of it. So,
sure. Well, let's go down here, and Darren, I had been coordinating with him all day, and this has kind of been a weird situation, but the rattlesnake, and I hope we can name him, I don't know.
Come up with something.
Darren's got names for some of his stuff. I see that on his Facebook and YouTube or website, but again, it's All God's Creatures Sanctuary.
Yep.
And so he named some of his stuff, and he talked to me and he said, Jeff, if it comes out, put a bucket over it and secure it, and we'll go down here, and hopefully it hasn't escaped. If it has escaped, I will be very upset. Because Darren has driven 40 miles down here to get here. And so it looks pretty much the way, and I had taken a painter's tape and taped a bucket to my stick to drop on it, and he was laying right in the shade of my sunflower plants just like normal, so we will see what happens. Are you nervous, Darren?
Well, you always should be respectful of something like this.
And you know, what I tell people is when you mess with these things to kill them, that's when you get bit.
Sure. And I don't never try to win people over. If they're scared of snakes or they're just nervous about them, I don't try to get them over that. The only thing I just try to get them is to appreciate them and just let them alone.
Sure.
I would never try to tell somebody nor teach somebody to do this, you know. And it is a big, I mean, I try to keep my utmost respect for these animals because they can't hurt a person.
Sure.
And I understand people's fears of them. I just hope that people realize that they belong here.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can just probably pick those off.
Which way? When
He
you said
tries to
normally,
go.
I started saying, where
He
does
tries to
normally
go right in there.
Okay.
That's where he tries to go.
Let's see, maybe if we can keep going.
This is Friday night in rural Appalachia. And, you know, I don't know how he's going to be, but when I have seen him, he's just kind of...
I started saying, if you've moved him with a stick, he
until
must be pretty chill.
Until I poke at him,
Okay.
he really doesn't do
Okay.
anything.
I have another grabber if we need it. I might have should have grabbed it, but yeah, let me actually go just in case something goes south. That should do it, but let me get that just in case he goes through their barn.
It's really exciting. It's like having a turtle man kind of. In my hair, I've been doing office work and doing things around here because my schedule's so crazy. And this guy's like really pretty cool, and what he does is really neat. But I'm interested to see what happens. Again, I had called him earlier, and normally this snake comes out a little bit earlier. I see him all the time cutting through the property, but I've never had one just stay here. And it just didn't want something, you know, dogs to get bit, somebody to get bit, and he's either going to keep him and use him for educational programs, or he's going to release him. They have about, I've read up a little bit on it in the last few days. They have a mile, 2 mile radius home range. There's a lot of myths. They don't breed with black snakes. They don't attack you. They're super rare. So we're gonna see how Darren handles this. Again, all God's creatures sanctuary. There he is. Oh yeah, he's not too happy. You have any idea how old?
No, I mean it's a mature adult, but one old, without being probed, it would be hard to say. One thing that well, let me get him in here before.
Sure. Wow. Wow. I can't. You know, does it seem like he's more docile than?
You know, one neat fact, and of course this is something anybody that sees this never
way easier than I thought it would be.
Never ever forget that to always respect them. I mean, they can hurt you and they can hurt you bad, obviously. But one thing about our timber rattlesnakes, they're considered, as far as rattlesnakes go, timber rattlesnakes are one of the most docile rattlesnakes in the world.
Really?
But that still doesn't make them safe. But,
and I also read that they can do what's called a dry strike, where they will not even put venom in you, or they can put more in you.
Yeah, they're usually about any venomous animal, and this is the way with scorpions or anything. Their first bite, typically, unless they're just really being harmed, is going to be what's referred to as a dry bite. Now, it'll have just a fuzz in it, and most people can tolerate that. Usually the second, and then if you know, are there for the third bite, that's when you're going to get pretty much everything they've got. That's a typical case, but it's not always the case. But I do know many people that have been bit and been dry bites, and they'll just wait for a little while and you know, be sure that it's not heavy, so to speak.
Is this unusual that somebody would call you and say, this rattlesnake keeps coming out here every day?
This is my first call on one. Yeah, I get a lot of them, but it's the first call on a rattlesnake returning back to the same exact flower bed 4 or 5 days in a row. This is a first for me, so...
I'm very shocked of how easy that was. I thought, you know, but that's kind of the way he's been.
Yeah, and there is, I mean, I'm by far no pro, but there is a skill, obviously, to a snake hook, and so, you know, I mean, it takes some practice. I've been messing with the venomous for about 3 years now, so I've become accustomed to picking them up, so it can be a little tricky, you know.
Look at it.
But that is a mature adult. If I had to guess,
how old do you think? Is there any way to tell? I always heard the button rule was kind of a myth too.
It is. And I was fixing to say that when I was picking it up. A rattlesnake nowhere has a button for every year that they've lived. They get a new button every time they shed. So I've had young rattlesnakes that'll shed 3 times a year.
Really?
But the problem is in the wild, if he's going, all that is dead skin inside of dead skin. So if he's going across a rock or a log in the woods, they can get it caught, break it off, and then just start regrowing them. So I've seen one that had 13 buttons, and 2 months later it had 3 because it broke, just accidentally broke them off. So there's no way to gauge age by the tail.
And that's all over Facebook. That's about as close as you're going to get to a rattler. You're like probably 6 inches away from a agitated rattler that would bite the crap out of you if you stuck your hand in there.
Oh yeah, you definitely wouldn't. Now I would feel comfortable. I wouldn't have an issue with sticking the hook in there and him probably doing nothing. But yeah, I would never ever stick my hand anywhere near one of them.
Is it top down?
It is. And one thing that a lot of people do incorrectly are there are some people out there that freehand. And not for any old religious purposes either. There's literally snake keepers now that freehand because they believe.
And I also heard if you just grab by the head, they're very strong and they will kind of whip, and they can pull through your hand, and then you get bit in your hand.
Yeah, I would never. And I know a lot of reputable people that do catch them like that and are good at it, but I would never attempt it. Another thing that's happening now too, from what I understand, you'd have to look this up to get the exact terminology of it, but from what I understand, there's some rattlesnakes now that I guess is a genetic defect. I don't know if that's the exact wording for it, but actually their fangs actually curl back this way,
really?
So they can open up with them. But I do know of a couple people that's had them, and they literally the fangs came out and bit them without even hardly opening their mouth. And I don't know exactly what that's technically called, nor the percentage of snakes that can do that either.
And then what's also interesting to me is these people, and I'm not making fun of somebody's beliefs, but you can go to Jolo, West Virginia, and they have all these churches,
sure.
And they will handle these things, kiss them, sing and dance with them, and they've had some preachers getting killed.
Oh yeah, they in fact, I think it's not been more than
look at that.
Maybe a year, 2 years ago in Tennessee, a preacher down there died. Got bit on the hand.
I'm guessing he's 2 foot, maybe 2.5.
Big, I'd say 3+.
And I've seen them bigger here.
Oh yeah. That one's nice and thick, very healthy. It's not been without food. I mean, that's a very healthy, good-looking timber rattlesnake. Good markings, no apparent defects. But I would say that's probably pushing 3 to 4 foot by the time he's stretched completely out.
Well, I appreciate you coming and getting him, and that's a service that's kind of maybe seems to be thankless at times, but given how rare they are and what he can be used for, either educationally or to be released, and I appreciate you coming out and getting him.
Thank you. Yeah, they definitely are. Their numbers are down, and I mean it's just because of the old knowledge of them. I mean, just they're a venomous snake, kill them. Just because they're venomous, they're going to bite faster, stuff like that. I mean, they've just really been on the blunt end of bad news too long, and so definitely respect them. Stay out of their way. Don't put up with one beside your house, but try to find somebody that can live relocate it, and don't just go out and chop its head off.
And if anybody wants to help out Darren, it's All God's Creatures Sanctuary. And Darren Handy, he's based out of Marion. He doesn't do this for a living. He does this because he's doing the right thing. And you don't find a lot of people that do that nowadays. So anybody can help him out. He's on Facebook and on the web. And, I'm very thankful that you would come out, Darren. Thank you.
Thank you.